What's up, everybody? I wanted to talk to you guys today about why it's important to order your bees early, to think about what you want to do now, even though it's just getting into the fall, kind of the middle ish section of fall here for beekeeping, and why you don't want to wait until spring, especially as a new beekeeper. If you're ordering bees from somebody in the spring, don't wait until then to order. Make sure you communicate with a beekeeper ahead of time, because honeybees are not something that you can just magically uh, get additional colonies. You have to have the queens and the resources available to support splits and additional colonies in the spring. So if a beekeeper is only intending on making a certain number of splits for a certain number of clients, and then you go to them in the spring and say, hey, I want to get on the list, not only are you going to be at the bottom of the list, you might not get bees that spring. Um, at least not when you want them, not in the spring. You may get a midsummer colony, uh, but again, that's what you're going to have to deal with unless you can find a swarm and you're prepared to do that on your own. Um, just because you have to have the breeding time, the brood time to get the queens, and you have to have time for them to get the resources. So if you call up a beekeeper in the spring and they say, hey, I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee anything, that's why. Um, it's especially first thing in the spring, it's very weather dependent on how many splits and things that a beekeeper will be able to do. So um, at this point in the year, you're going to start seeing a bunch of the drones being kicked out. Some of them will be dead in front of the colony, and some will be kind of lethargic, just hanging out here and there. That's because the males, the drone bees, really don't do a whole lot, especially at this point in the year. Their only real functions are to eat, and if they are born during the right period of time of the year, they have the opportunity to mate with a queen. Other than that, they eat and hang out. So the girls all kick them out. The workers will kick out all the drones in the fall to preserve as many of those resources as possible over winter. And the queen will just make new drones in the spring. They're not worried. So there is a difference between the biology of a summer worker bee and a winter bee. The winter bees are going to have a hardier fat body availability or ability to them. Their genetics are slightly more hardy than the winter or the summer bees, and this will vary differently just a little bit genetically, depending on what species or subspecies of honeybee you have. The three most common here in the States are going to be the Italians, the Carnolians, and the Russians. And each one has slightly different genetics, slightly different behavioral attributes. So depending on where you're at, that would be one thing to look into as well. Um, the queen will continue to lay eggs throughout the fall and the winter. Her brood laying does slow down quite a lot. She will focus mostly on one or two frames, potentially three, depending on the size of the colony and where you're overwintering them. If you're doing an overwinter up here in Michigan where it does get cold, she'll only really move between one and two frames just to stay warm and to keep enough bees to supply the colony. A summer bee will typically live about 30 days, give or take a little bit, and a winter bee will live about 45. So again, 45 days is not a full winter, so they will need bees to replace that. So she will continue to lay, but it does go down quite a bit because they want to save resources and not expand too much energy. They want to just maintain enough to get to spring. So, a couple of overwintering things that you can do is the bee cozy. I don't particularly recommend it because for the price you can get the 1 inch or even 2 inch if you wanted. 1 inch is just fine. pink housing insulation sheets. They come about 4 feet tall by about 6 foot long, maybe 8 foot or so. And for the same price, you can get a couple sheets of those, cut it to size, to your hive specifically. I honestly, I will either duct tape or ratchet strap them to the get together to the hive just to give it a little bit of a windbreak and insulation. You don't want them to be too warm and too active over winter because then they'll eat through all of their food or too much food before spring, and then before spring, before things can start to bloom, they'll starve out. So you don't want them too active, and you don't want to trap any moisture in there, but you do want to have some sort of windbreak. Um, Another thing to do is to tip the hive slightly forward. Like a half an inch shim or even a quarter-inch shim would be fine on the back side of the hive on the bottom board, just to tip it forward a little bit over winter in case any moisture does get down in there. It will roll out the front of the hive and not freeze in there to cause problems in the future. For weak colonies at this point in the year, you can either combine them or kill them. If it's not gonna survive the winter, why waste the resources? Again, it's a judgment call. A big thing that I'm in favor of is combining weak hives, uh, either together or with stronger colonies. Right now, we are towards the mid end of October, so it is a little bit late to do that. I would say the beginning of October would be kind of the last time frame that you would really look at that. But we do have a warm spell right now, so you could get lucky and do it. With that, I would take the queen from the weaker colony and do a newspaper combination with a stronger colony, stronger queen. And to do the newspaper method, you just take the hive off the strongest colony, leave them on the bottom, lay a layer of newspaper across the top of the top box on them, whether it be a brood box or a honey super, and then put the brood box of the weaker colony on top of that. It allows the time for the pheromones of the stronger queen to really kind of circulate, and they choose through the newspaper, so it's a slow entrance. So the weaker colony can get a sense of those pheromones and accept the queen. And then they'll just move down into the bottom box and join the other workers. Uh, that is a couple of things that you can do at this point in the year. A few things to look at. A warning about waiting too long to order your bees and equipment. My absolute final cutoff is the end of February, towards the end of February. After that, I've really got to get my list together and focus on the splits and queen health, colony health, seeing what ones are my strongest. You can split a colony a couple of different times, but it depends on the time of year and how long you're willing to wait. So if you're not really willing to wait, definitely do your research and contact somebody pretty much as soon as you decide to get into the hobby, or into the work. So if you have any questions or comments, definitely let me know. Anything else, I will see you guys soon.